All right, guys, so at the request of our premium subscribers, we're trying something a little bit new. So as you know, typically we do our monologues and then we engage in a back and forth. And that back and forth is actually the only part of our content that we paywall and is exclusively for our premium subscribers. Sometimes those exchanges and those debates are particularly noteworthy or heated or interesting or whatever. And so what we're gonna start doing is every week picking one of those and posting them a couple days later. So still premium subscribers get the jump on it, get to see it first, but then the whole wide world gets access to it a couple days later.
That's right. So this is what this week's discussion looks like. And going forward, you guys can enjoy it. Let's take a listen.
Everything about this drove me a little bit nuts.
Yeah, I mean, it should. On the Disney part, I think it's so funny that they own themselves by having to now raise property taxes to hundreds of millions of dollars by taxing those populations.
I mean, I guess the only thing you could say is that those counties where Disney's located are mostly blue.
Yes.
So like, maybe they don't care.
It's kind of like the SALT repeal. It's
maybe they don't care that it's but it's still like definitely not the way that it's being portrayed. And ultimately also, I read it's not even gonna go into effect for like a year. So you could also very easily see them like working out some deal down the road where none of this even actually happens.
I think they'll figure it out. I do gotta say, and I'll stick up for the right-wing listener base of this, I don't think this is an attack on gay people. And I just think that framing it that way is just not the right way.
Of course it is.
It's really
You think that there's gonna be lawsuits over if some straight teacher talks about their like heterosexual marriage? Of course not.
I think the impetus of the bill is about teachers. In terms of the extent of this, Libs of TikTok possibly made it larger than it is, but like there are teachers and nurses which are, pushing trans ideology with young kids, which parents don't necessarily want their kids to be taught about. Now, look, should I think the nation's attention should be focused on that? No. Is it largely a limited instance with these teachers? Yes.
But I don't think it's about the thing.
It's not about a burger.
I mean, so many times though, we've talked about how dishonest it is to find one example of saying something cringy.
Totally.
And then make it like, oh, this is a whole thing. And they're creating a moral panic. And it is specifically, as you said, about gay people and about trans people.
Well, I don't think it's about gay people. I think it's about trans ideology amongst young kids.
No, but that's
the key.
And also, here's the other issue, is like, sex ed is already illegal
well, then why
Florida.
Are these parents teaching? This is the problem. Why are
K to 5.
Why are
so
these
like, what is this ultimately about?
Anyway?
It's about culture war.
I don't disagree, but I mean, there are instances of kindergarten teachers like pushing trans ideology amongst these.
What do you mean
by
pushing trans ideology?
So they're like
that's the other thing that's really disgusting and pernicious about this is being like, if you're trans, ergo, or you're talking about this at all, ergo you're grooming kids,
100%.
which is disgusting, and that's part of what this is all about. I mean, his own communications director tweeted out something to that effect. Chris Rufo was in the page of the New York Times basically making that case right now.
So when I say pushing trans ideology, I'm not talking about making, you're a teacher and you're like, hey, my pronouns are they, them. I believe in a free country, you do whatever you want. I'm talking about, and again, I don't even like delving into this stuff, but like the transition closets, you have nurses which are pushing hormones on the young kids and telling them not to mention it to their parents. You have like GSA clubs popping in with like young children, and they're saying like, we're gonna protect this from the parents and not tell them about what's happening. I think the policy should be, if as a child, if you want to explore whatever you want, you should talk to your parents about it. We can come to sex ed and we can talk about ideology all we want. K through 3, yeah, I mean, I don't see any reason why it should be pushed. Now, that being said, is this the main thing that I would want to focus on? No. And like you said, Disney is rolling to the bank in terms of their support for this stuff. I see, it also talks to you about what their executive classes focus on. They're like, oh, my child is a pansexual, whatever. Your kid, you do whatever you want. But whenever they do that type of stuff, they're ignoring the fact that you have homeless Disney workers. I think on the bill itself, framing it as attacks on gays is not right.
It's true. They want to re-stigmatize anything that is not heteronormative. And so if you have individual teachers who are a problem and they're doing things that are against the law, then you go after those individual teachers.
Absolutely.
And again, remember, sex ed, however you feel about whether this should be the case or not, sex ed is already banned in Florida. So from K to 5. So this is really just about signaling like, I'm against, trans ideology and I'm gonna stand, with the conservative base on this, framing it as a parental rights issue when really it's just all about this culture war. it's an anti-gay virtue signal bill. That's what it is. It's an attempt to re-stigmatize things that have become increasingly accepted.
But it's dramatically popular, Crystal. It's got 63% approval in the state of Florida, and I think there's a reason for that, right? And I just think you're doing a disservice to it by saying it's anti-gay, because 55% of Republicans support gay marriage.
Do you think that ultimately there's going to be an issue if you have a straight teacher who's talking about their marriage in class?
No, I don't.
Of course not.
I also don't think, though, that a gay teacher.
But if you have a gay teacher talking about their same-sex partner, do you think that's much more likely to face a lawsuit ultimately and somebody be accused of like, oh, you're grooming children or whatever ridiculous?
More likely,
because
yes.
they want to push it outside of mainstream and make it like, this is weird and deviant, and this is the norm and the standard.
I think if it happened to a gay person, I would speak out against that, and that's why I think that the law is, badly drafted and stupid, largely. But look, what I wish we were fighting about is whether the school district gets more funding or not. Well,
I think that's a good way to close it, because ultimately, if you are a parent, a public school parent, as I am, the thing that you probably should be most concerned with is the cuts to public education.
What's the math budget?
Right, exactly. And those things never seem to get very much attention. You'll have people flooding into school board meetings over some vaguely worded law. Part of why we're arguing about it is because it could mean anything or nothing and have no impact or be far-reaching. So instead of, they'll flood the school board to talk about that. But the thing that is actually going to be most impactful to your kids' education, the budget funding, suddenly that gets cut and cut and cut, and no one even notices.
You actually showed me this. It made me so sad, which is that there was I think it was here in Virginia, there was a CRT meeting where it was completely full, and somebody put it side by side at the school commentary session for PTA that nobody showed up for, which was the funding of the actual school. So I'm like, okay, guys, look, I'm not saying these things aren't important, but the other things are as well. And if this is all that's going to be rule politics, your kid could literally have his school slashed by 45%. But as long as, you focus on this, then priorities, I think they're all mixed up in general. And unfortunately, though, this is the way the politics is going.
Indeed. Cable news is ripping us apart, dividing the country, making it impossible to function as a society, and making it impossible to know just what is true and what is false. But the good news is they are failing and they know it.
That is why we're building something new, a new mainstream, a healthier one, something more trustworthy, something that we are going to need in one of the most pivotal times in American history. We are building up here for the midterms, for the upcoming presidential election, but we need your help. So if you can help us out by becoming a premium member today at breakingpoints.com, we're trying to change America for the better and the entire world.
So what are you waiting for, guys? Go to breakingpoints.com and sign up and help us build a new mainstream.